Okay, good morning again, everybody.
Good morning.
Before I start the lesson, I'd like to start out with something funny. So I had a guy come to me, and he was, this wasn't in confidence, so I can say it. He came to me and said, marriage is difficult sometimes. And I don't want anybody shaking their head, yes, please don't do that. Anyway, his wife the other day, or for the last 20 years, he said, has been bugging him about putting a cap on the toothpaste. And so the last anniversary they had, he said, he thought to himself, well, you know what? I really need to get rid of that bad habit anyway, so I'm going to really focus on making sure I put that cap on the toothpaste. And so the next week, he just made sure every day that the cap was on the toothpaste. And after that week, they're getting ready to go to bed, and the wife finally turned to him and said, how come you quit brushing your teeth? He was trying to be helpful, but I guess it didn't work out. All right, today's talk is about creatures of habit. And we all are creatures of habit, whether we know it or not. But that can be a good thing, but only to a certain extent. In our spiritual life, we grow, and a lot of people, especially coming into Unity or something new to them, they hear something that excites them inside, and they go with that, and they live with that. And then after a while, they're not as excited, and they wonder why. And they sit there and wonder, whether they should keep going to church or whatever. And in fact, everybody knows that churches in the U.S. are on the decline as far as attendance. And there's a lot of reasons for it, but the main reason is, I think, is what we're going to talk about today, is as far as, to a certain extent, being a creature of habit is good. We usually always drive the same way to work or do whatever we're going to do, like during Lent, Catholics, well, not all Catholics, but a lot of Catholics will eat fish because that's what they're trained to do when they're young. That during Lent, you're supposed to not have meat on Fridays, according to the Catholic religion. So, there's all sorts of things that we do as habit. But what I suggest you do for a habit this week, if you want to try, is just try going a different way to work maybe. Or not even if you don't want to go that far, which maybe there's only one good way to go to work for you, and that's okay. And if you need to go that way, try to notice other things along the way, though, because things that you haven't noticed before, maybe it'll be different for you. In spirituality, in religion, because, we get kind of stuck when we think about religion, and why we say spirituality usually in Unity is to talk about the individual experiencing more of God in their life. And that's really what it's all about. But when we talk about religion, a lot of people have something come up in their mind, don't they? They have usually a lot of times, not all the time, but usually what comes up in your mind is what you grew up with. And that can be good or bad. You may not be in the same church or where you were at when you grew up. But as far as spirituality, what are we supposed to do as individuals as far as our spirituality? We're supposed to continue to grow, right? Well, like I was saying a minute ago, when some people come to a new church or a new understanding, that's what they hear. They may like it, they may dislike it. If they dislike it, they're gone anyway. But if they like it and they don't come back, what is the reason? The reason is because usually they think, well, I can get that somewhere else, or whatever the reason is. And then when it kind of dies, they wonder, well, why is it dying? And we're going to get into that. Fillmore says this, as far as creative intelligence: mind of God forever upbuilding his universe. Now this, there's a lot of things that this relates to, but what I want to ask you today is, and we can do this by a show of hands, because I want to know, I just thought of this. How many people think that, let me see how to phrase this question. How many people think that God knows what the universe is going to look like tomorrow, say? Okay.
Well, kind of, yes.
Okay, it's kind of a trick question, but not really. Not really. It's not. I'm not meaning to trick anybody. Or does God? Here's what I'm getting to. I wish I should have thought of this question. A couple of questions for this, because this relates to the question that everybody asks. God knows what's going to happen, and God does know what's going to happen, but doesn't know what choice you're going to make. So God knows that if you choose this is going to happen. And it's kind of, and if we think about it, on just the physical level, we can surely understand that too. If we think about it, I mean, if I go in front of, especially downtown, 85, 75 and try to walk across that highway, I'm probably going to get hit, aren't I?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty stupid thing to do, but I'm just trying to look at an extreme example. Sometimes and so most of us don't walk across that, right? Because we don't want to be hit. But in spirituality, what I was saying earlier is if we stop having that feeling of growing, then it's up to us, because we are not continuing to be open to new stuff. The God knows what's going to happen, but doesn't know what choice you're going to make. And Warren, why? What does that mean? What does that mean? It means that part, that DNA of God that's in you, allows you free will, right? Allows you to choose what you're going to do. Now, you may not consciously know what the result is going to be by what you do in your spirituality. But subconsciously, at God mind, you do know. And so if we do know, then our spiritual growth is totally up to us. And, a lot of people say, well, what do I need to grow spiritually for? I'm here on this earth. Everything's going pretty cool for me. What do I need to grow spiritually? Because if you want everything to keep going cool for you, then you better grow spiritually, to be quite honest. Because you cannot have what you want in life, and it's not about what you want in life, but you can't have the physical things you want in life without continuing to grow spiritually. It just won't happen. You will slowly deteriorate in all areas of your life. And it's not, you can go to business school and find out that there's a life of a business. And, even I'll prove that to you by telling you, I'm sure y'all have heard that Jeff Bezos, the person that started Amazon, and nobody's heard of that, right? Amazon, he already says that Amazon is going to die one of these days because he knows the business model. A business goes like this. If it's successful, not even all blessed businesses do this, but if it's a successful business, it'll go along and then it'll have a peak and it'll keep going along a peak, but at some point that peak will be the peak. Right. And if it doesn't reinvent itself, it will go down. You will not continue to go up, and you will not continue to plateau. You will either go down or go up. So in our spirituality, we all grow at some point in our life because we hear things, we understand things that touch our heart, and we understand that, oh man, I'm more than just this body. There's a lot more to me than just this body. And so when I start going up that, and then I understand that, then I peak, I'm cool, I'm really happy with it, and then I peak, something happens probably physically in our life, not necessarily to our body, but we may have a hit financially, we may have a hit something, we may have tried to cross 285, I hope not, and made it. But anyway, and then we'll plateau and we'll think, well, what's going on? I'm not as hot as I used to be. I'm not as energized as I used to be. And the reason is because we're not changing something. We're not reinventing ourselves. And reinventing yourself doesn't mean that you have to change everything in your life. You can live, which is unusual anymore, but you can work at the same company your whole career if you want to, and still be one of the most spiritual persons on earth, because you are continuing to change. And I tell you what, if a company had somebody for 45 years, they probably saw a continual change in you too, because they wanted you to continue to do things for that company and grow in your understanding and what you're doing. When I was in charge of Unity's 4 departments at Unity Village, and it was hard to tell these people sometimes. Especially the people who had been there a long time. I tried to have them learn different areas of different departments. And they'd say, well, I don't want to do that. That's more work for me. And I'd say, the more things you know, the more valuable you are to the company. Don't let yourself get stuck in a rut thinking that my success is here. I don't need to worry about anything else. Because it's not that way. It doesn't work that way. I see so many people now that retire that only have Social Security to depend on. And Social Security is a wonderful thing. It really is. It's a great idea that came up for the United States. And it's not enough money to live on unless you want to live in poverty. And I'm not saying that as a negative to Social Security. What I'm saying is Social Security never was meant for you to live on. If you'll look back on when Social Security was invented, you know what it was invented for? So people wouldn't die in poverty. But right now, the definition of poverty, if you only have Social Security, you're in poverty. But I'm not saying that as a negative, okay? Because you could actually live on Social Security. Barely, but you could. But let's not look at that, getting by barely. Let's look at changing ourselves, improving ourselves, and knowing that we're going to have a better life. So we can always understand that the mind of God knows everything that's going to happen, but doesn't know which way you're going to happen. Because you're part of God. And that goes back to the creation story. You know, some people want to say that we were evolved from monkeys. I don't agree with that, but if you want to say that, that's cool. That's you. But don't try to limit me by that, because I have the DNA of God in me, and you do too, whether you recognize it or not. Basic tenets do not change. Ways to express do. So think of something simple like that's major is like love. When you fell in love with your spouse or your significant other, or maybe you don't have one right now, think about your mom or your dad or somebody that you've been in love with. The first part of that love was what? It was exhilarating, wasn't it? Remember how exhilarating that new relationship was? It can still be that if you've been with a person a long time. It can still be that if you choose to make it that. But if you choose not to make it, what's it going to be? Put on the cap of the toothpaste without brushing your teeth, right? You can still brush your teeth and put on the cap every day. So think about that in your long-term relationships. I know, Reverend Francie and I have had a lot of sets of children in our house, and sometimes a lot of times we focus on the kids and then forget about ourselves, which, we shouldn't do. We should make sure that that's a priority. And so we have to think about where we're going and how we're getting there and what we want to achieve in life. And when we say achieve, I'm not saying that it's hard to get there. I'm saying it's just the things that it's kind of like, you won't see this from me today, but if you want to lose weight, you need to, quit the intake as much, right? I mean, this is Thanksgiving. I shouldn't say that during this time of year, but anyway, if you want to do that, you can't, you have to chill on the intake and do some more exercise, right?
Right.
It doesn't happen without you doing what you need to do. But the basic tenet does not change. The basic tenet is that if I want to lose weight, then I have to exercise and cut back on certain foods, like the pecan pie, I guess. So I guess I am going to share it, Picola. Anyway, we have to remember all that stuff. God's love of life does not change. Type of life does. And this, what I was wanting to point out from this slide was that God, how many people believe God loves them? I hope everybody raises their hand. You don't have to, because you may be in a place where you think that God doesn't love you. And, people can get to that point. In fact, there was a movie once, and I always forget the name of this movie. It had Robert Duvall, and I don't know if you remember who he is, but anyway, it isn't Robert De Niro, it's Robert Duvall. Because I always used to get those mixed up, and I'm getting it clarity right now. But it's Robert Duvall, and he was a pretty religious guy in this movie. But he felt like God let him down at one point in the movie. And he sat there and he had this loud argument with God, saying, God, you really let me down. I can't believe that I counted on you at this instant. You really let me down. I can't believe you did this to me. And he got really angry. And then after he got over his anger, he realized that it wasn't really God that did something to him. Our actions and this is the hard part about unity, is that our actions produce results. I've explained before about how negative thoughts in our mind hurt us, not the other person, if you're thinking about another person. But all those negative thoughts, this is what I've explained before, are like moisture in the air. They go up and they form a cloud. And when that cloud gets so full, what does the cloud do? It rains down. I don't want to be under that cloud when it's full of negative thoughts. But if you are not thinking negative thoughts and you are prayed up, as we say in unity, are ready for anything that happens in your life, that negative thought rain is not going to bother you. It's going to dissipate. But you have to be strong enough in that time to be ready for it. But this is exactly how we have wars and other things in the world, negative things in the world right now. is we have people that are thinking negative thoughts and don't think that there's any kind of consequence to it. The internet is a wonderful thing, but it sure has allowed us to be able to be pretty darn bold on what we say to somebody else, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And we can say whatever we want and think that it's never going to come back on us. But it does come back. It comes back to everybody as a society. It's how wars happen. It's how Reverend Francine and I were going to actually it happened when we were in seminary, and we weren't supposed to do this. We just decided to do this. And it was when, I think it was the Iraq War. I can't remember what war it was. Anyway, because it was during one of the early Bushes. Anyway, we were wanting to go into downtown Kansas City and have a march for peace. We wanted to have a march for peace. Well, when we got down to the temple, which is a big church that we have at the plaza in Kansas City, because we were gathering there to go, and we were the organizers of it from the temple or from the village. But anyway, when we got there, a lot of signs said anti-war stuff. And I went up to the guy there that was getting all their signs ready, and I said, "Listen, this is a for peace march. It isn't an anti-war march." And there's a big difference, in my opinion, because we're not against. It's kind of like and I don't want to get myself in hot water here, but it's kind of like saying the old saying, "You fight fire with fire." Well, sometimes you do, but not in negativeness. When that saying really kind of throws a lot of people off, because fighting fire with fire is kind of like throwing. It was meant to be like throwing love at hate instead of hate at hate. Because a lot of people take it hate at hate, right? That's not really what it meant. Because Jesus, this is why Christianity is so cool, and I'm kind of getting in the weeds here, is Jesus clarified a lot of those things in the Old Testament. That's what was one of the great things about Jesus. He clarified a lot of those things that were misunderstood in the Old Testament. Now, nowadays, we have to clarify a lot of things that Jesus said, because people try to take him as negative. So when we're thinking about what we're doing in life and how God loves us, we can't forget that when we get down or whatever, something happens that isn't in our nature, isn't something that we want to happen, that we have the strongest support system behind us, whether there's anybody physically behind you or not, that there can be. When you remember you have God behind you, you can never, ever fail at what you're trying to do. Now, does that mean that I'm going to get whatever I want in life? No, you may be redirected. I know that I've been redirected. I mean, that's usually not a good word from people that are judging you, but redirection isn't really a bad deal sometimes. I never thought that I would be a minister. I mean, I was heavily involved in Unity Church, but not as a speaker from up here. So think about and be open to other ways to receive your blessings. And that's all it is seeing other ways to receive your blessings. Our love of life has to be for this moment. We've got we do have a lot of plans for our life. Everybody does usually. And if you have a spouse or something, hopefully you sit down and talked about it. If you were getting married and having my counseling, you would definitely have a lot to talk about it. Because I have, and I'm very proud of this, and I don't know how many it is. It's not hundreds, but the people that I've married, and it's been many years now, are all still together. I'm very proud of that. And the reason I'm proud of that is because before they get married, I talk to them about these things that might come up. Now, I don't hit all of them. There's no way I could. But we talk about it and try to understand that, when something happens, when your spouse or your significant other does something that irritates you, which will happen, believe it or not. I mean, a lot of people don't think that going in, but it does happen. I know you've never had it from me. Thank you. When that happens, you have to remember what you got into the relationship for. Not because they're a perfect person in your mind, but because you love them. Love trumps hate. Love trumps anything in life. But you have to be open to this moment and not be saying, well, this ruins the whole deal. We got Francie bought a new van a few months back, and we've had this, you know how everything is electronic nowadays. Well, the big screen there, for some reason, first of all, it's never been able to turn on the radio. The radio is always on, always. Now, we can turn the volume all the way down so you can't hear it, but it's always on. It's just kind of irritating. And so, sometimes if you're listening to the radio or something and you accidentally push the button to turn it off, the whole screen goes off. So you got no map, no nothing. And so it's a great van, but we've been dealing with that for months. And they keep telling different things. And they've been great. The dealership has been great about it. But it gets old driving it back there because what's the name of that place? Winder. It's almost an hour away. So it takes a while to get there and all that stuff. And then the loaner car, all that stuff. But anyway, they've been great. So they're finally going to this week replace the whole thing instead of keep messing with it. Next week. Okay, whenever. But we have to not let that ruin the whole goodness of the van, right?
Right.
I mean, the van is a cool van, and it's fine. And when you have kids, you'll love vans. You'll learn how to love vans. Those sliding doors are a thing of beauty. Okay. Each of us has a vision of what our new church is going to look like. And I know this can be something of contention in a lot of churches. And yet, when we get this project done, a lot of things probably aren't going to be exactly how you wanted it. But I'll tell you right now, if you want to fund something that is going to look that way, we can definitely look into that a little bit closer. But I don't even know what it's going to look like. And I have my ideas, but I don't know. We'll see. But this is something that when we have an image in our mind, what are we doing to create that? Are we thinking good thoughts about it? Are we thinking negative thoughts? Are we thinking, I'm going to get my way or the highway? Are we thinking, I'm going to be open to whatever good comes from the new building? So we've got our choices on a lot of things, and so keep praying for that and giving us your vision, because we want to have your vision. We do. Ministers, this is funny because Francie said you got to watch it on this. Like I said, I've been in Unity all my life, and ministers, the old-time ministers that I was used to have really good talks. Really good. Is my time up? I'm sorry. It's over. I'll speed up. Ministers used to recirculate sermons. Usually is about a couple of years is what they had. And they used to, prosperity and whatever, love, whatever it was that Sunday, about 2 years worth. And maybe some do still. Reverend Francie, I'm sure you haven't either, but I never have written the same talk ever. Now, maybe on the same subject, but it would not be the same talk. But more than anything, even if I was recirculating, because somebody has come to me before, and I don't remember if it was here or not, but anyway, come up to me before and said, "You gave that talk before, didn't you?" And I said, "No, I didn't." But I didn't actually say anything. I never say anything on the receiving line, because people will come to you and say, "Oh man, I heard you have a prosperity teaching," and you'll say, "Oh, I heard this thing about how that really helped my health. Thank you for talking about health today." And I didn't even mention health. But if they receive that, then that's cool with me.
Right.
If it's going to help their health, that's cool. I'm not going to down that, saying I didn't do it. But the most important thing to realize on this, even if ministers were recycling talks, is that the person, and I've done this, I know how to do this, you do too, especially reading the Bible, is when we're listening to something, if we listen to it, I don't care if we listen to it right now and I give it to you the same exact talk this afternoon. You've changed since then. Yeah. That's how quick it is. You have changed it since then, and if you're listening, then you will get something different from that. And hopefully, if you come into it with the gospel idea, which is good news, then you're going to receive something good twice. And I brought up the Bible a minute ago because that is the gospel. And the gospel that word means good news. And so many people have read the Bible and think, oh my God, how can that be good news? But if we go into it and understand that it was meant for good, then how can we look at this and see the good out of it? And we can if we look at it correctly. Now, that isn't meaning that we're going in there and changing what it means. It means we're going in there and understanding what it means. Because a lot of things, everybody here, usually, more than likely, unless you're, Aramaic or Arabic, whichever, have read an English Bible. And that's been translated numerous times. And there's in all other foreign languages, especially in the Middle East, a word means multiple things. And it means something in the context of when they're saying it, too. So we can't, unless we know all that stuff, we can't really say that it means one thing or the other. So we have evolved. And regrettably, like I was saying earlier, if we're getting to that plateau and we're starting to go down, then we're essentially devolving spiritually. Because if we start the downward trend and we're not learning anymore about our spirituality, then what we're doing is we're cutting off our good. And when we're cutting off our good, we're cutting off other people's good, because you're a blessing and you need to share your blessing with others, those that you're around. The core of all God's creation is good. And that's true. So on the gospel, like I was saying, the good news, if we're looking at God, if we're looking at our relationship with God as being good, as producing good, then we will have that result. Now, does it mean instantly, God, I want to win the lottery, please send me the numbers? No, that's not what I mean. Although, if you want, what is your goal there? When you say that, what is your goal? You want money, right? You want financial success. That's what your goal is when you say you want to win the lottery. I hope. I mean, that's the only thing I think you're going to get from it. Maybe you want notoriety. Whatever the end result is you want, be open to that instead of the means of how to do it. Do you follow me?
Yep.
You don't have to know the means of how you're going to get your millions of dollars. Just be open to learn how to do it. Just remember, Warren Buffett, believe it or not, was not well-to-do when he was a young man. And now he's one of the richest men in the world, right? Neither was the guy I said earlier. Bezos, Jeff Bezos. In fact, I'll tell a quick story, and then I'll keep going, sorry. I don't know if everybody knows, I've told it before, you probably remember. FedEx, which started all that delivery business stuff, could not get money. He did get a loan, but he couldn't get any more money from the bank. And he was coming up on, this is early in FedEx's career, or FedEx's existence. He was coming up on a payroll he couldn't make. Did you hear this story? It's true. It's not a story. It's a story of a truth. He was coming up on a payroll he couldn't make. And he said, I'm to the end of it. I'm going to just go and try something weird, because he wasn't a gambler. But he went to Las Vegas, threw some dice, ended up getting enough money to make the payroll, and the rest, he made money from his baggage business, and you can see where it is now. It's worldwide and all that stuff. But sometimes we have to be open. I'm not saying go out to the casino, okay? Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But if you do and you win, 10% comes to the church. Right. Anyway, so let's just remember that we have to be open to God's goodness, and however that comes. One pure idea can flourish into a plethora of good for all. So when we have a good idea, we have to give it fertilizer. Reverend Francie was saying, I don't remember how you said that about this. Oh, they were talking about it last week at the youth church about the seeds that were spread out. And it's such a good story in the Bible about spreading the seeds. And some, went on the sidewalk, went in the fertile ground, unfertile ground. And of course, the one that grew the best was the one that was in the fertile ground. So we have to, when we get these ideas, these divine ideas, we have to continue to see where they go. Now you may go for a while and see that really wasn't a divine idea. That just came up for me, I guess. So it can be something maybe you need to release. But if you continue to fertilize them, they'll come into something good. And remember that this is kind of drives me crazy sometimes. People think, especially if you're beaten with the Bible in your early youth, people think that if I become a success, then really I had to sin to do it, and I'm not a good person, and so I'll just stay down here, way down here, and I won't be noticed, and I won't be good. I won't be having anything good happen to me. That's wrong. That is totally incorrect. Good should happen to you, can happen to you, and will happen to you if you allow it to happen to you. And it's important that good happens to you individually, because when it happens to you individually, all the people around you benefit.
Absolutely.
If you don't allow that to happen, then look at all your friends, all the people you love around you, and say, to hell with you. Right? I'm not going to accept my good because I don't love you. That's not true. If you really love somebody, you'll be a success, and in doing that, you're allowing what? For them to be a success. You can't be around a bunch of losers, a bunch of naysayers, and expect to be a yes and win a lot, be good and achieve a lot of things. You have to either separate from them or allow yourself to be good and accept good, and in doing so, allowing them to do that too. I have had numerous people come to me and say, you know, I grew up with these people. Numerous people come up and says, I grew up, they become successful. And they come to me and say, I grew up with these people, and now it's like they don't like me. And you can say it's jealousy on a carnal side, but it's a lack of knowledge of knowing that they deserve good too. Because they do. And so, but here's the hard part of it. Are you going to continue to do good? Because they might leave you. Are you going to continue to do good and accept your good? I hope so, because that's God's plan for you. Okay. Gosh, I'm getting into this. I hope I'm not beating you up too bad today. Good grows on it here. I've already said that. So we have to do that. We have to produce it. That's a cool picture, though. Habits can be good, yet will generate the desired result will not generate the desired result if not enlivened. And that's true. We're talking about spirituality. So what do we have to do to enliven, to keep our spirituality growing? It's not necessarily to be a zealot and go out and proselytize, although you should allow people to know, because when you're successful, people are going to, maybe people you don't even know will want to be around you. They will want to be around you because, if for nothing else, maybe they want you to give them a handout. But that's not the main reason, hopefully. The reason that they want to, from God's viewpoint, is because God's creatures go to success. They flock around success because they know that they are supposed to have success. And so when we allow our success to be visible, not bragging about it, but to be visible, then we will know that others will be attracted to us. This is from 2 Corinthians 9:10. Now he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will also supply and increase your store of seed and will enlarge the harvest of your righteousness. And remember, righteousness in the Bible means what? Right thinking. It doesn't mean I'm better than you, which a lot of people have interpreted it as. It means that I'm right thinking, And like we've been accused of since we've been here is, at Conyers, is right thinking does not mean that if you think it, then that's all you got to do and it'll happen. When you think it, God gives you the ideas of what you got to do. And then you got to follow through. It's not just thinking it, but that's the most important part. You have to allow those thoughts to come in. The good thinking. So anybody who's worked on a farm understands this even more before the righteousness part, that you have, when you supply the seed to the sower and all that stuff, then you increase your store of seed, which is what you need for next year's plant. So it enlarges the harvest, which we're having out there today. It boils down to being aware of what we are doing and how our good habits can continue to yield the good results we desire. So think about something that's happened good to you and think about how that happened good to you. You probably had to do something for it. You may not recognize it even, but this is why we have to contemplate sometimes. We have to go to prayer and meditation sometimes, is because we have to, on a carnal sense, stop and smell the roses. We have to remember how this happened to me. Why did this good happen to me? Because you deserve it, but you did your part. What we are thinking at any moment in time, and we have to remember what we're thinking at any moment in time. Because I know right now, I'm probably, if I was sitting in your seat, I'd be thinking, when is he going to get done? Because I'm kind of hungry. But, it's okay. We're going to eat. We're going to have plenty of food here in a minute. And I'm sorry I'm going over. But we have to think, and that's okay to think that, actually, because your body needs nourishment. But, think about what you're getting fed with at all times. Free-flowing thoughts can allow us to open up our subconsciousness. So this is important, so I don't want to forget this. Release thoughts that are not yielding what we want in life and expand on the thoughts that are positive and life-giving. Reverend Francie touched on the subconsciousness last week, and it's a long, drawn-out study, so I don't want to be overdone here. But when we start thinking good thoughts, we let those thoughts free in meditation or however we calm ourselves down and allow those thoughts to come free-flowing. We can see our thoughts as what they are. Is this thought helping me in life? Is this thought not helping me in life? Is my thought I'll just use the most current situation. Is my thought, I hate Jews or I hate Palestinians? Is that helping me in life? Or is it hurting? Is it preventing me from receiving my good? And either one of those things are preventing you from your good, okay? So that will bring something up in us in our subconscious that we need to get rid of. Because there's also a plateau in our consciousness. And unless we figure that out and continue to go up, we're going to decline. So when we get to that plateau here, we can just think of what we're thinking. And we're thinking in our spiritual movement. And what are we thinking? Are we thinking of that? When we watch the news, are we thinking of one side or the other? And if we are, we can learn that that's been in my subconsciousness from however it got there, really doesn't concern me. Now is my opportunity to release it. Okay. In this way, we can be a creature of habit and continuously produce the best possible life. And so that's it. Thank you. And we're going to go eat here in a minute. But we're going to song first. Thank you very much.